It started with a rumble of car engines on a Saturday morning, a sound that didn't belong on my quiet stretch of land. By the time I stepped onto my porch, I counted at least a dozen vehicles pulling into my meadow like they owned the place. SUVs, sedans, a rental van with a florist's logo, all lining up in neat rows. And at the center of it all was her Karen strutting across the grass in a floral wrap dress, clipboard in one hand, phone in the other, barking orders to a small army of caterers. Her laugh carried across the field, the kind of laugh that made my skin crawl because it was never about joy, only dominance. For a moment, I thought I'd wandered into a dream, because nothing else could explain the absurdity of this scene. My land, 20 acres passed down from my grandfather, had been transformed overnight into a makeshift event venue. Rows of folding tables, a white canopy tent, speakers stacked beside a DJ booth, even a bouncy castle for the kids, and not a single word to me about any of it. I called out to her, my voice carrying over the chatter and clinking glassware. Karen, what the hell is going on? She turned, squinting into the sun, then smiled as if I were some minor inconvenience. It's the HOA's summer party, she said, waving her clipboard like a royal decree. We needed a bigger space, and yours was available. My jaw clenched. It's not available. This is private property. She rolled her eyes, the way people do when they've already decided your opinion doesn't matter. Oh, relax. It's for the community. You should be thanking me for bringing life to this place. The audacity was almost impressive. Almost. But the real kicker? I'm not even part of the HOA. I've never signed their paperwork, never paid their dues, and I've made it crystal clear that their rules stop at my fence line. Karen knew this. She'd fought me over it twice before and lost both times. But here she was, tripling down, acting like I was just another pawn in her petty kingdom. I walked back inside, grabbed my phone, and scrolled to a contact I hadn't used in months. Dispatch. My years as a volunteer firefighter had left me with more than a few friends in the right places, and this was one of them. I've got 90 trespassers on my property, I told the dispatcher. They're setting up what looks like an unpermitted event. Food service, sound system, the works. There was a pause, then a low whistle. We'll send units. While I waited, I set up my own cameras, 4 of the mangle, to capture every detail. Karen was too busy directing a caterer to notice me, but I noticed her. She was sipping something from a champagne flute now, leaning in to whisper with 2 women from the HOA board. The smug tilt of her chin told me she thought she'd gotten away with it. 15 minutes later, the first patrol car rolled up, lights flashing. Then another, then a third. Officers stepped out, scanning the scene, their eyes narrowing at the sight of the crowd, the bar set up, the DJ testing his speakers. Karen approached them with exaggerated confidence, her hands fluttering like she was shooing away a couple of stray cats. It's fine, officers. This is HOA sanctioned. We have permission. One of the officers, McBride, a guy I'd worked alongside during a search and rescue op, met my eyes over her shoulder. Is this your land? He asked. I nodded once. Do they have your permission to be here? No, I said, loud enough for the nearest guests to hear. Conversations around us faltered. Karen spun toward me, her face tightening. You can't just ruin this for everyone, she hissed. This is bigger than you. McBride's voice stayed calm but firm. Ma'am, you and your guests need to leave immediately. This is private property, and you're trespassing. The words landed like stones dropped into a still pond. Guests glanced at one another, murmuring. Some began gathering their things. But Karen, unwilling to lose face, planted her feet. We're not going anywhere. He's bluffing. The HOA has rights she didn't get to finish. McBride gestured, and 2 more officers stepped forward. Ma'am, if you don't disperse this gathering right now, you will be arrested for trespassing and illegal use of land. A man in the crowd I guessed I didn't recognize shouted, Wait, are we all going to get in trouble? That was the spark. Panic rippled through the group as people grabbed plates, folded chairs, and even half-full drink pitchers. The DJ yanked the cord from his mixer. The bouncy castle began to deflate with a sad hiss, and the neat rows of cars turned into a slow, awkward exodus. Karen stood frozen, her clipboard hanging uselessly at her side. But the real twist came when the county code enforcement officer arrived, summoned by one of the patrol units. He'd been investigating unlicensed event venues operating on private land. Turns out, Karen had been charging $50 per guest under the guise of an HOA fundraiser and pocketing the cash. When the officer found the cash box in the back of her SUV stuffed with nearly $4,000, it stopped being a trespassing case and turned into fraud. I didn't have to lift a finger after that. The officers handled everything, escorting Karen to her car while the code officer photographed every setup detail for evidence. Guests avoided her gaze, some shaking their heads as they left. The sound of champagne flutes clinking was replaced by the sharp snap of police evidence bags. Karen's arrest wasn't dramatic in the Hollywood Cinceno screaming. No flailing, but the silence that followed was louder than any outburst could have been. She kept her head down as the officers walked her to the patrol car, the afternoon sun catching the sheen of sweat on her forehead. The clipboard she'd been wielding like a scepter just an hour earlier now dangled uselessly in her cuffed hands. Neighbors who had once lined up for her approval stood back, arms crossed, watching her go with expressions ranging from mild satisfaction to outright glee. I stayed on my porch, arms folded, letting the scene burn itself into my memory. This wasn't about revenge, at least not entirely. It was about making it clear that my land, my rights, weren't open for interpretation just because someone with a title in a defunct homeowners association decided to rewrite reality. Within hours, the county sheriff's office issued a statement. HOA President Karen Whitmore had been arrested for trespassing, fraud, and operating an unlicensed event on private property. The local paper ran the story online before sunset, complete with a photo of her being led to the cruiser. Comments poured in, some defending her, most calling her a grifter who had finally gone too far. But the deeper rot started to show once the investigators began pulling at the threads. The cash box found in her SUV wasn't the only problem. They uncovered bank transfers from HOA accounts into a community improvement fund she controlled personally. That fund had paid for everything from her landscaping to her vacation rentals. Every HOA member in the neighborhood received a letter from the county auditor within the week, and the reaction was swift: special meetings, resignations, demands for dissolution. The twist that made me almost laugh out loud came from one of her own board members, Denise, who apparently decided self-preservation outweighed loyalty. She handed over a thumb drive full of emails, spreadsheets, and scanned receipts showing exactly how Karen had orchestrated the fundraiser scam on my land. Denise even admitted that Karen had chosen my property because she thought I wouldn't dare involve the police, convinced my reputation for avoiding neighborhood drama meant I'd swallow the insult quietly. That miscalculation was her undoing. The trial itself was short. The prosecution didn't need much more than the video evidence of the party setup, the trespass confirmation, and the financial records. I testified only once, laying out the facts in a calm, steady voice. Karen avoided eye contact the entire time, staring at the defense table as if she could will herself invisible. Her attorney tried to spin the story into a misunderstanding, claiming she believed the HOA's community easement extended to my land, but the survey maps and exemption documents made that argument crumble in seconds. The jury deliberated for less than a day. Guilty on all counts. The judge, a no-nonsense woman who clearly had little patience for petty tyranny, sentenced Karen to 4 years in county detention, restitution of all stolen funds, and a lifetime ban from serving on any HOA board in the state. The ban made me smile. It was the perfect punctuation mark on the whole mess. When the sentence was read, Karen's lips tightened into a thin, pale line. She didn't cry. She didn't plead. She just stood there, as if realizing for the first time that the crown she'd worn in this neighborhood was made of paper and gasoline. The HOA dissolved within 3 months. Without her grip on the board, the remaining members voted unanimously to disband, citing irreparable damage to trust and governance. The bylaws, the fines, the pointless threats, they all vanished like smoke after a rainstorm. The community clubhouse, once her personal stage, was turned into a shared workshop where neighbors built furniture, fixed bikes, and held potlucks. As for my land, I decided to make a point. That summer, I hosted my own event, a community picnic, fully permitted, open to everyone in town. No entry fee, no fundraising gimmicks, just good food and music. People came in droves, bringing lawn chairs, coolers, and kids who ran barefoot through the grass. And at the entrance, I placed the same wooden sign Karen had ignored, freshly painted. Private land, keep out unless you're invited. It wasn't about rubbing it in, it was about drawing a line between what's shared and what's stolen, between respect and entitlement. People still talk about that day, not because of the food or the music, but because it marked the end of an era, the last gasp of a petty dictator whose own arrogance burned down her kingdom. So tell me, when someone tramples over your boundaries like Karen did, is it better to turn the other cheek, or to let the world watch them trip over the line they crossed?